All right, I laid out to you yesterday, and my good buddy, former Congressman Vito Fossella, was in studio with me for a little while. And my theory is this, and we're going to get into it a little more with Michael Johns in a minute here. It's not a mistake. The pollsters aren't wrong and then wrong again 4 years later by monumental proportions. What we're seeing here is the uncovering of one of the biggest racketeering cases ever in political history. Okay? You got the polls. They're emanating out of liberal universities and liberal think tanks. The media is all the liberal progressives. They take those polls and they broadcast it to the world, validating it. Okay? And then all the big money raisers, what do? They go, hey, look, Biden's up big. We got to raise him more money. We got to hold this lead. Hey, we need to get senators elected. We need to get congresswomen. So the polls are fake polls. They're validated by the news. Then the PAC guys go out and raise more money off the news that's validating the polls. And guess what the PAC guys do? 70% of the money they spend goes back to the media to buy commercials to bash Trump or to promote Biden and down ballot candidates. So it's one big RICO. And if there are any Italians in this thing, they'd be getting wheeled out right now in a line of people in chains. Believe me when I tell you. Mike, there is an extraordinary history of voter fraud, especially in Philadelphia. What do you think about my premise that the pollsters, the media, and the PACs are in a big, giant conundrum of corruption?
Well, and the important part of what you just said, which I completely agree, it's not something that we're putting enough attention on, is that these polls aren't meaningless. They're not entertainment. I mean, I know they are for some people who are just kind of casually following the news, interesting, and they kind of feed into the news coverage of a campaign. But you have allocation of dollars. We were outspent, and by we I mean Republicans, but Republicans were outspent on House races unbelievably in some of these cases. I believe a lot of that has to do with the fact that you have PACs especially, but even individual donors who quite understandably want to allocate their money into races that are both close but winnable. Once it looks like the race isn't winnable, when in fact it could be winnable, because polls are suggesting that, the money doesn't get allocated to these races, and races that could go the other way don't go that way. That's one of the reasons campaigns started to develop internal polls. But those internal polls have even less credibility than regular polls. So, it's a real. I think we have a real democracy. I want to be clear. Constitutional democracy is the best system ever formulated in the history of man, and it needs to be defended. But if we don't acknowledge that we have a system that is failing that level of representation, that the political party systems are failing the country, creating unnecessary division, that the country itself is unnecessarily divided, and that the system of media coverage, which includes their associated polling and academia, and as you correctly said, these a lot of them are doing a lot of these congressional polls, have had an agenda. We're denying reality. I mean, it's there's all kinds of issues, even as it relates to this election. I mean, we talked about even on the social media issue, how is it not an in-kind contribution to the Biden campaign when you censor the fact that we have an ongoing criminal investigation into foreign monies that have poured in to the Biden family, just simultaneously, you just happen to be involved in strategic and important policy considerations in each one of those countries.
So, Mike, I was doing some research on my premise, and I don't think it's an agenda. I think it's literally strategy. A cartel of corruption, and everybody's benefiting. So there's this PAC called Future Forward, and it's made up of many of the Silicon Valley millionaires, right? Billionaires. They spend 60% of their TV money on anti-Trump ads. Okay? So, to me, here's the scheme. We get some big donors, they make some big endowments to universities who make the polls, and the polls get given to the media, and then the media goes out and validates them to everyone, right? And then these PACs go out and use them as validation, right? And then the PAC is saying, hey, listen, you guys over in Biden world, you just do all positive stuff. and we'll handle all the negative stuff over here. We won't coordinate, but we're going to do mostly negative stuff. So the campaign knows that they can allocate all their money to positive messaging, get out the vote, whatever it is. And it's really coordination, and the PACs are doing the campaign's work by taking the negative stuff off their hands. And the money that comes in goes right back to the networks for advertising spend, and the PACs take 20% a cut from it.
But what's the one common denominator, John? It's the fact that, well, the inclination is to always say, look at what they're doing, how outrageous. And of course it is outrageous. You have to come back to the fact is, what have we been doing? Where is the leadership on our side? Well, academia, media, polling is polling, and now even vote counting. I mean, I'm watching in Detroit, when they were kicking the state attorney general out of a polling location, poll watchers breaking out into applause each time a Republican poll watcher was evicted when he or she was legally entitled to be there. Same thing in Philadelphia, Allegheny County in Pittsburgh. Okay, do you know what they did? There's 35,000 outstanding votes there. You know what they did yesterday? Took the day off.
Now, again, I always put it back to my kind of senior management mindset, running a business. Hey guys, we got a big task ahead of us. This is a big election. We're working all night. We're working 24-hour shifts. We're doing 12-hour shift. We're ordering 1,000 pizzas. We're working no sleep till Brooklyn, right? I can't imagine
this stuff. A local-owned corner store knows how to have shift work completed. You know, how in Philadelphia they were voting down at like 12:30 p.m. You know, well, the whole world's watching and waiting for these results. And there's one of the reasons you do that in the worst case scenario is to see where the vote count is on how many more you need to get. Then they deny access to poll watchers. We have no idea. Not one of those mail-in ballots in Philadelphia has been reviewed by a Trump or GOP observer. Not one. And then they show up with a court order and they're still denying entry to those people. I believe, you know, and this was put out, you know, by the Newt Gingrich said this morning. I think he might have a point. I think you might need to completely disqualify every one of those ballots.
Yeah, I think that's the argument, to be honest with you. Mike.
Yeah, I think you got to take every one of those that was counted. It's a great disservice to the city of Philadelphia, but who's to blame for it? You know what I mean? You cannot just sort of assume that these people when they consciously made an effort to keep out observers, were doing that for benign. I mean, what's the benign explanation for doing that? Well, the law requires that they be there.
If anybody knows how to start a movement, it's this guy, Mike. We may need to find a small fledgling network and just start, you know, the American, you know, the all-American TV network, because people are looking for a place where they can get real news, and we need a place to get real news out. We got to talk about this more because we got to do something right away. We have the people with us, and we have the ideas with us. We don't have the machines and the institutions, and that's got to get resolved. All right, well, we should get to work on it, that's for sure. Michael Johns, always the best, always joins me on Friday. Thank you, brother. We got to put our heads together. I'll talk to you soon.
Look forward to it.
Have a good weekend. All right, Michael Johns. We'll take a quick break. Bop, bop. Back on the other side right after this.